Joining us now is our boy, Mr. Ben Standig from the Last Man Standig Substack. Benny, what's up, dude? You already got out of here? You couldn't even hang out with the boys in the tent?
I appreciate it. Well, I actually have to go. We're into the studio later, and I had to realize I got to get home and deal with things, so I left.
Okay. What are you hosting on 980 this afternoon?
I am 4 to 7. I'm gonna talk about the Commanders. Big shock.
All right. Well, give everybody a preview of what you're going to talk about from 4 to 7 right now. I thought today may have been their best practice. I think offensively it was their best practice. What would you see today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pads, the whole point of the pads on some level is to raise the level of competitiveness, energy. Guys are going to go after a bit more, and I would say that the 2 days with the pads have probably been the two best overall practices for that reason. I think the offense, I think did feel like it was clicking a bit more. I love the one-on-ones they have, with the receivers and the cornerbacks.
Yeah,
I don't know how telling that is necessarily for the season or whatever, but from our perspective, it's a lot of fun to see that level of battle. So yeah, I mean, the receiver room has got a lot of options. I know it doesn't necessarily have the guy who's the obvious number 2, but every day there's a couple of guys who are making plays, making some noise. Even a guy like Jacoby Jones today had a nice move on the outside to get wide open. He got thrown into the end zone. So yeah, I mean the better day for the offense for sure.
Have you seen a difference when the guys in the pads and the running backs? I know we see when they're in just with the shells or whatever, but when they put on the pads, do you see a difference? Bill runs hard. I would say. I mean, we kind of view him as a guy who can obviously break it, which is true, and he's got that slithery one step, but he's not afraid to be physical. Obviously there's no tackling yet. It doesn't. But that said, it doesn't feel like the run game has had a ton of success. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but I haven't noticed it much. To your point, though, I mean, Katron Allen certainly is another guy that's physical by nature. I'm excited to see these guys, some of these guys at least, get into the preseason and the joint practices to see be a bit more open. But yeah, I think between Bill and
we lose Ben there?
Can't be physical. Fat man, yes.
Okay. Talking with our friend Ben Standig here on the Rude Guest Hotline. Standig, I'm curious, man. You used to work at The Athletic. Mike Sando is a wired-in dude. He puts out this quarterback tiers piece every offseason, every training camp. Jaden's now at 13th in the second tier. I kind of think that's fair. I'm curious what you think, and how do you think Jaden gets back to what we saw last year where he was or in 24 rather, when he was just a dominant player?
Yeah, you know how, in gambling, when the trend goes too hard one way, it's sort of the smell test, as Kevin Sheehan might say.
Sure.
It goes too hard one way, then you go the opposite. I kind of feel like that's where we're at with Jaden. Rankings, it is what it is on all these things. And, in that general tier, sure, I think that makes sense. But because of the way things went last year, it's just 2024 didn't happen. And look, there are a lot of questions here, right? Especially if you're on the outside. We've all, heard the gospel of David Blau, but for the rest of the world, they're wait, they got some guy who's just been a coach for 2 years as the OC. Oh, that's scary. They saw what happened with Jaden last year with the injuries. So it feels like he's getting discounted a bit too much. But again, from the outside perspective, who doesn't focus on it every day like we do, I understand to a degree where they're coming from. Simultaneously, maybe we're overestimating things because we hear, and this is the team that we pay attention to. But I still buy that he's got, the eye of the tiger, and I think the offense, like you said, it was better today. It's still work in progress, obviously. But, if people want to discount him and put him, beyond the top 10 quarterbacks, I guess we'll see where we're at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's kind of a proceed with caution. I talked to De'Ami Brown. No, who was it that said Jaden Daniels with a big chip on his shoulder is pretty darn dangerous? Quan Martin, maybe. I don't.
Yeah, Quan.
Yeah, but I totally agree. And there's so much talk about this
Or
receiver.
was it Rashad?
No, it was somebody I talked to. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But there is so much talk about the receiver position. There is so much talk about Steph Diggs, which I still think it's very possible could happen. Let's remove the Diggs conversation for a minute. I have been more encouraged with the receivers that are here than maybe I was a week ago, and I think a part of that is Luke McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. What have you thought of Luke?
Yeah, no, I wrote a bit about him yesterday. There's no such thing as the MVP of practice, but I kind of thought yesterday he arguably was that in a day where the offense only found the end zone one time and didn't really have a ton of plays down the field. He had the one touchdown. He had some plays down the field. I think he's looked pretty good, and he's been consistently out there when they've gone to 11 personnel. He's been consistently out there with Terry McLaurin and Traylon Burke. So it doesn't mean that's what will happen week one, but it's something to note for sure. And just broadly, I mean, the thing that was alarming to me last year about the receiver room, beyond the fact that Terry McLaurin was holding out and beyond the fact that Noah Brown was already hurt by minicamp, was the fact that just the depth options were just guys. They weren't really people who had specific roles. Like, again, like we've seen De'Ami Brown, right? I mean, nobody's suggesting he's going to be some standout number two, but we know what he can do. He can get deep. He's got speed, and they know how to take advantage of that, I think. And, it's situations like that they just didn't have a year ago. And even like McCaffrey, right? I mean, he's still a guy who was primarily a quarterback in college, making that transition. He didn't, get a ton of work as a rookie. And, I think the issue for last year was people are expecting him to be the number two receiver kind of deal, right? At least that's what the hope is. And it's just not necessarily maybe where his upside is, and we can quibble about that at some point about where he was picked. But in terms of what he can do, he can definitely help this group. And I do think that there's a lot more options here than people want to believe, except that I can't definitively say that any of them are either would be better than Diggs or would be ultimately like a true number two.
Yeah, I just like when I'm looking at Luke, I just see him looking a lot more fluid. Like last year, you could see him running routes and everything, and he was like he was thinking. This year, I see him just running. Like everything is just falling in place for him.
Yeah, I also thought like last year, like he had a problem separating the first couple of years. And, when you're watching him run down the field, he's just not open. And now, it's obviously maybe some of that scheme, but some of that's got to be on the guy. And this year, again, not making it out like he's Art Monk out there, but like he definitely seems like he's getting open more, like you said, a bit more fluid with the route running. I mean, he's got the tools. If I say he's a playmaker, don't mock me. But I mean, the guy scored 3 touchdowns on 10 catches last year. He had that one big catch last year against the Chargers, like over the shoulder, up the middle. Like he's a guy that has the capabilities to be a big play guy. Even with the kick returns, right? I mean, he's averaging 28 yards a kick.
I almost wonder if that gave him a little juice. Like he starts to really find some success returning those kicks, and it's like, I mean, for a guy that's from a small school, converted receiver from quarterback, it's like, all right, man, I'm here. I belong here. Like, I've found this role, and now it's like you're growing from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And I think, to some degree, maybe it also even gave the coaching staff some confidence about, what they're looking at in terms of an athlete, a competitor, all those things, because he definitely was effective over there. I think between McCaffrey and Sinnott, we're all waiting for that 2024 class besides the quarterback to go up a notch. And those are two guys that a lot of people, right, Newton for sure, a lot of Brandon Coleman, but those two guys in particular, McCaffrey and Sinnott, it feels like a lot of people have just kind of already written them off. And, my just basic advice is I think it's too early, and I think that these players are not stuck in whatever status they're in now. They are on the upswing. I don't know where the upswing goes, but this is where they get better year in, year out. So give it time. I think both of those guys should have bigger roles this year.
I agree with you.
Who on the D-line has impressed you the most, Ben?
I mean, if we're counting Owe as one of those guys, I mean, certainly he seems like he's in the backfield quite a bit. So there's that. I think Johnny Newton's had some good work. He's largely worked with the second unit, but he's shown
more power than I expected, Newton.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, it is kind of wild, right? In other years, and I'm not saying that people are cool if he doesn't work out, but in other years, the guy picked 36th overall who can't seem to get high in the rotation going into his third year, I think a lot of people would be like screaming, what the hell? And it feels like this year it's almost like a bonus if it happens. Like nobody is like freaking out because they do have just so much more depth in the front seven on the line, et cetera. But yeah, no, I think he's looked interesting. I still don't quite know where he fits in.
I agree. It's kind of a question mark.
Yeah, but yeah, I think he's shown some good things. And I thought maybe I didn't so much today, but I thought Javante Jean-Baptiste a couple times in camp has flashed a bit, kind of a guy you forget a little bit about. And
dude, Benny, I was talking about this. I'm curious if you agree. All of a sudden, we got to pay attention to the 40s. The people
41,
wearing 40
45,
uniform numbers.
48.
That's kind of no man's land. But 41, 45, and 48 keep turning my head. That's Baptiste, Chason, and Joshua Josephs. I think the rookie out of Tennessee has had a good camp.
Yeah, I mean, personally, for me, I think the numbers in the 40s are just terrible numbers. Other than maybe 44, because there's a lore with that here. The rest of them, I don't like the cut of that jib.
Yeah, so dude, we were talking about it. Like the
48,
48, Stephen Davis, and then Cooley and Dunbar wearing 47. But outside of that, Chris Horton might have been wearing 40s back in the day, but the 40s don't usually pop. And should Baptiste, Chason, and Josephs all make the team, I won't be shocked if there's a number change once we get into August and more numbers are available. But it is weird.
It may not be. People like those weird numbers now.
That's true.
Yeah, we seeing D tackles and stuff with number 1 on them.
Yeah, number 0 and stuff. What have you thought of Joseph's, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, he's the definition of a raw prospect. He's got the length. He's got the speed. He's got a good first step, I think. But, he's definitely raw. I mean, if he contributes this year, I think that's another bonus. To me, it's all about getting him ready for next year when, other than Owe, all the edge guys are free agents. But, yeah, no, he looked like a guy that if you want to bring him in as sort of a designated pass rusher at times, he could help. Obviously, once Dorrance Armstrong is back, I don't know how much work there'll be with Armstrong, Owe, and Chase on there. But, yeah, he as a pass rusher, he looks like he could contribute. But ultimately, I think he's probably a year away from where where he really gets going.
I agree with that. Let's circle this back. Where are you on the Diggs conversation? You think it happens? You think it needs to happen? How do you think it all shakes out?
I mean, I've been waiting for, like, last year to me, it just was like screaming they need to get more help here at receiver, and they just never really did it, right? In 2024, they were like, we got to get help. Oh, wait, Noah Brown just got cut. That makes a lot of sense. I just don't know right now, based on what we've seen in camp, that they would be screaming, we got to get more help right now. Because, again, look, Terry has looked really, really good. And all the other guys, to some degree, have contributed in ways that you can imagine them contributing on game day. So I'm just sort of the mind, I would right now rather see the Antonio Williams, Jalen Lanes, McCaffreys, if you want to throw in De'Ami Brown or even Traylon Burks, like these guys who have something to prove, I'd rather give them the space to do it than bring in a guy who obviously Diggs is good, but he's going to just sort of block their path, and it's not towards anything of the future most likely. So if they bring it in, I wouldn't say it was terrible, but I think based on what we've seen, I don't know that Adam Peters and them should be panicking about having to go get somebody.
Well, looking at these, they use a lot of multiple tight end formations and things of that nature. Do you think when you look at the tight end group, can they be, somebody that's kind of take that pressure off of having to go out there and get a big name number 2?
Well, I think that's the other part of this, right? Like the last few years, it's been 3 receivers on the field pretty much all the time. This year, they're going to go with 12 and 13 personnel a bit more. So now you're taking
more, dude.
Yeah, so you're going to have maybe only 2 receivers on the field. Obviously, we know who one of them is, and again, depending on the down and distance or the time of the game, I think Traylon Burks and Brown and all these guys can be the player you need at that spot. And because Chigakonkwo can play outside, they have moved him so much around, I kind of feel like he's also not the best blocker so far in his career, so it's not like he's going to be a guy leading the run necessarily. So I can see him being essentially the number 2 receiver, and playing a bit outside, letting maybe then Antonio Williams or McCaffrey work out of the slot, and therefore you don't feel like you have to have more, incredible depth at receiver because, again, you're maybe only going to be using two guys most of the time. So I think the tight ends will be a big deal. I do think Sinnott is going to be a bigger factor. And look, Colson Yankoff has made a ton of plays in camp. Yes. He had a one-handed catch today.
Day after day after day, man.
Yeah, and I don't know if Lawrence Cager's a room for him, and he's, going up against, obviously, third-string guys. But he's also made plays. So I think they got to be pretty happy about the tight end room, assuming Bates is back soon, and therefore I think it does take some pressure off the receivers.
I agree there, man. One thing that's interesting, I was having this conversation. There is obviously pressure on Quinn and Peters to win this year, right?
Sure.
But it doesn't feel like it. You know what I mean? This doesn't feel like there's any sort of desperation or concern. And I think that's a really good way to run things is without that feeling. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, look, I think if Dan Quinn, on the one hand, I think if Dan Quinn really, really thought that his job was in jeopardy and that he needed to have however they're going to define success, some success, I don't know that he goes to two first-time coordinators, especially one. I know they can tell me all they want about Blau and how, smart he is and how good he's going to be, and I'm not doubting it, but it is an unknown, right? It feels like in other coaches might have gone the Darrell Bevel route, somebody who's been around the league, not flashy, but you kind of know what you're getting because you feel I think the last coach might have done something along those lines. So I think I give Dan Quinn a lot of credit for whether he thinks he's under pressure or not for going down this route of two coaches who haven't done this job, and not to mention he's allowing somebody else to come in and completely change the defense that is his defense.
Right.
So it doesn't. Yeah, right. They're not. It's not acting like they are in that kind of trouble. I will say I think part of the reason they had to look at the guys who've not been a coordinator before is those maybe say Mike McDaniel were looking at this going, well, maybe Quinn's under some pressure. Do we want to go someplace and maybe be out of a job in a year? So I think going that route, the inexperienced route, was probably a better way to go because you can say to those guys, "Hey, here's the opportunity." But yeah, you're right though. I don't get a sense of tension in the air that oh boy. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, that can change quickly if the season starts off a bit slow.
Yeah, and the season is going to start with a bang. That's the tricky part of all the. I'm excited about seeing this defense in real spots. I'm excited about seeing this offense in real spots.
Yep.
They better start fast, man. At Philly, at Dallas, Seattle, at home.
Yep.
Can I ask BMitch a quick question? We're obviously looking at the Philly and Dallas games as hey, two division games on the road. That's tough. Some people are trying to make the argument that hey, Philly and Dallas are not going to know squat about Washington because of the fact that Blau and Durante Jones are new. Is that a thing as a football player? Is that a thing that we don't know the plan, therefore it's harder to scheme against, or is that not as big of a deal?
Well, it is a thing. They're not going to know exactly what to attack, but they're going to look at individuals now. I think those first few games of the season anyway is more about I think I'm better than the guy in front of me. You know what I mean? The scheming up comes after them 3-4 weeks of the film out there when you've done something consistently, and then now they can game plan for it. That first game is like a crapshoot anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Ben, appreciate the time, brother.
Appreciate
I think
brother.
they steal week 1 in Philly. I really think they can. Philly's got so many moving parts. Those receivers are down. What is Hurts? New offense.
Yeah.
Philly's defense nasty, though. Standig, thank you for the time, bro. All right, that's Ben. Our friend Ben Standig. Give him a follow at Ben Standig.